This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
What's up, Detroit sports fans? Welcome to the Fan Report show made by fans for fans, powered by the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I'm Nick, and with me today is Andrew's going to give us this week's topics.
Well, it's our Pistons end-of-year roundup as we close out the Pistons season. Woody's roundup. 40-32. It's a Fan Report.
We're also going to be breaking down the Lions' schedule a little bit, too, but that is going to be in the second half of the show. We are starting with the Pistons as they are kind of more forefront. The Lions season is still a ways off, and rookie minicamp is just beginning. Hopefully it is off to a smoother start than the Giants with, what's his face?
Did they just
Tony?
sign Kelvin Benjamin?
Tooney? Yeah, well, Kelvin Benjamin's in there as a tight end, so Booger McFarland's prediction of he is one Popeye's biscuit away from being a tight end is now a fact.
He had that Popeye's biscuit.
Apparently.
Who's going to be the better tight end? Kelvin Benjamin or Tim Tebow?
Kelvin Benjamin makes more sense at the position in terms of he's a pass catcher and was actually a halfway decent
Tim Tebow
one.
has a better quarterback throwing to him.
You definitely could argue that. Absolutely.
Unless the unexpected happens and Trevor Lawrence comes in as absolute trash.
Or Daniel Jones is a stud.
Or that.
I mean, Kelvin Benjamin would be the obvious choice. No question, because he is a pass catcher. He was a wide receiver in this league, and he was a big wide receiver, so he already was used to just bodying people as it was. So, but I don't think he has the physical aptitude anymore. Like, I don't think he's in shape. I don't think he's there mentally. He just doesn't seem like a guy that has really ever given 110% in football, and I don't anticipate him all of a sudden starting now that he's 30. So I also don't really think Tim Tebow is going to be a relevant tight end either. So there's that.
It's crazy with Kelvin Benjamin. Like, he had all the talent in the world. Like, if he just
he had a great rookie year. He had a 1,000-yard season.
Yeah. If he just put the effort in his state condition, keep his body in playing shape, like it's all he needed.
And he allowed himself to turn into Eddie Lacy and get fat and not be worth anything. I mean, Eddie Lacy with the Packers looked like a legitimate running back. Like he looked like one of the premier backs in the league and was going to be. And then he just couldn't lay off that Wisconsin cheese and put on like 40 pounds and never recovered from that. And it was kind of the same with Kelvin Benjamin down in Carolina. So, but
it's crazy. Eddie Lacy didn't even make it to like 28 in the NFL. Like
he didn't.
He flamed out so quickly
because I remember he signed with Seattle and couldn't really crack their.
And that's when all the
depth chart, really.
That's when all the fat shit.
Right, the fat Eddie Lacy jokes came out. Instead of beast mode, it was feast mode out in Seattle. I remember that one. But guys in their conditioning, obviously, it's a sport. Conditioning is extremely important. I mean, Albert Hainsworth, I should say, not Waynesworth. Hainsworth was a guy who got cut from rosters because of his weight.
For what it's Hainsworth, I totally thought you said Hainsworth.
Maybe I did. I don't know. It's a Monday.
You could have totally gotten away with it. I would never notice.
It's a Monday. But hopefully the Lions rookie minicamp gets off to a smoother start than the Giants rookie camp with still can't remember the guy's name. He's their rookie. Give me 2 seconds.
What position?
I want to say he's a receiver. Kadarius Toney.
Oh, okay.
And his issues to start, I don't know if you heard about this, but he started the camp in blue cleats, then went to red cleats, then went to one cleat, then went to no cleats, and he was off the field because his feet hurt. Apparently,
what's with the cleats? I'm confused here.
Apparently, it had something to do with the equipment guys gave him the wrong size shoes or something, and it was hurting his feet, and he couldn't really play in them, and then he tried switching them, and it still didn't work, and so who knows? Apparently, he was trying to run some routes or whatever in bare feet, and then they just took him off the field entirely, and he apparently was able to get it straightened out on day 2. He is a wide receiver. He was able to get it straightened out on day 2. He kept his cleats on for the whole practice. So that's good. Lions rookie camp is obviously going to be without Penei Sewell, who recently tested positive for COVID. Does that at all worry you? Like him missing camp how important do you think rookie mini camp is?
It's not that I don't think that Pistons not going to be like NFL ready. It more worries me that he didn't play football for a year, so I just want him to have as much time as possible to get back into like game conditioning, game shape. Like that's really the extent of it. Like,
I mean, that's fair enough. The videos were out there and the reports were out there that he was constantly working out and getting his body ready and getting ready for the NFL in the year he took off. So
yeah,
there is that. But no, I can agree with you. Like you want him to utilize as much time and opportunity he has to get ready for the NFL, to get used to moving over to the right side of the line. You got to remember that he is going to be making a move to the right side. So there is a bit of a learning curve that he's going to have to pick up, and the more time he has to do it, the better. Now, mind you, rookie camp isn't something where you're doing 11-on-11 drills or even 7-on-7s a lot of the time because you don't have enough players at each position to make it happen. Yeah. So he's really only getting drill work and things like that, which only does so much, but it is important for a guy trying to make a position change, especially one that he may not be as familiar with, even though he is an offensive tackle. He is playing on the left side normally, but he is going to be moving to the right side. So you're going to be asking him to make a position change, and not having the reps is a little bit of a step back, so to speak. But I think he'll be all right. I'm not really worried about it, but I do want to see him get into practice as soon as possible.
Yeah. Now, I know we said we're starting with the Pistons, but considering we're already talking about the Lions, let's just keep going.
All right. We'll keep going. We'll roll with it. The game plan's working, so let's roll with it.
Yeah. So Lions schedule to get released last week, and boy, is it brutal.
It's brutal all the way, like starting with the preseason.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Colts, Bills, and Steelers in the preseason. That's a mean preseason schedule. And don't get me wrong, preseason's stupid, and I frankly think 3 weeks is still too long, but that's just me. But yeah, they have an absolutely brutal schedule this year. Like the easiest opponents they're going to be facing are the Bears, the Vikings, and
unless Justin Fields is a world beater,
and maybe the Bengals. I like to say that those three teams are possibly the easiest games on their schedule. Like
maybe the Falcons.
Yeah, maybe the Falcons also, but that's brutal. Yeah. That's a schedule that scares the hell out of you. It doesn't help that they're going up against the NFC West, which is probably one of, if not the best conference in football outside of the AFC West. So that's already a blow to what some Lions fans hope to be a successful season for the Lions and a turnaround and a surprise season. But looking at their schedule, there's not a lot of wins there. There's really not. And yes, it does hinge on what Aaron Rodgers decides to do in Green Bay. It does. But that's 2 games out of 7.
You even have factors like the Denver game, week 14. Like in December, you're playing in Denver. Week 17 in January, you're playing in Seattle. Like, it's not even friendly weather-wise. Like, it's
not to mention week 17. Oh, no, you're at home week 17 against Green Bay. Never mind. So your Green Bay game is in September, so you're fine. That's
a Monday night game too.
It is. You avoid Lambeau in the tundra, but absolutely. I mean, none of these. I mean, even some of these games in some of these states that aren't necessarily considered cold, super cold weather states, but Pittsburgh in November, that isn't always the warmest place to play. It's going to be probably a pretty cool night there, or pretty cool afternoon there in Pittsburgh, or Chicago in late November.
Well, that's a home game.
That's a home game. You're right.
Game.
I'm looking at the schedule the wrong way. But Chicago in early October, you'll be all right there. Philly in late October. We've seen it snowing on Halloween here. I'm sure it snowed on Halloween out there as well. But
I'll be honest, though. If there were ever a year for us to have an insanely difficult, ridiculous schedule, I'm happy it's this year.
I am too.
Because we're not going to accomplish anything this year anyways, and we have 2 first-round picks. If we can have one of them be like a top 3 pick, and then the other one falls where it falls, hey, I'll take it.
I'm not going to complain about that either, because like you mentioned, we have 2 first-round picks this year, and looking at the schedule, one of those 2 picks is probably going to be a really good pick, and that's your own. because, like I said, there's just not a lot of wins here. Like, I don't anticipate the Lions winning in Minnesota. And that looks to be one of the more winnable games on their roster. And Chicago, that's a huge wild card. But at Chicago, where you don't necessarily play well historically, that's a tough one. And not to mention, you open the season up against a 49ers team that plays extremely physical right from the get-go. And then you turn around and have Green Bay on the road, who is a division rival, in the limelight on Monday Night Football. And then you turn around and have a short week. So you've got a battle and a gauntlet to start the year. And there's never really a break until literally you get a break at the bye.
I honestly don't know what to make of the 49ers this year, too. Like, losing Robert Saleh as your defensive coordinator, I feel like is pretty big. And I don't know what to make of that defense this year, to be honest with you.
I agree and disagree because I still think that team has a lot of belief in themselves, and I think they'll still play up for the DC next year. You got to remember that the talent on that team is still there. Yes, they lost Robert Saleh. That is a big blow, but the talent is still there. I'm sure they made the right hire to bring in the proper defensive coordinator to be his replacement, someone that the team wants to get behind. The talent's there, and defensively speaking, I still think they'll be near the top half of the league, if not near the top 10 or better. It's whether or not the offense can get it going. But again, Kyle Shanahan's probably the best play caller in football outside of Andy Reid, and so I believe in that offense as well. I mean, yes, they lose a big piece in Robert Saleh, but they're still a pretty damn good football team. I got a lot of belief in them for sure.
Yeah, they're I mean, unless I'm forgetting anyone, I don't think they're losing too much on the defensive side. I know they lost Kerry Hyder to the Seahawks, but that's about it. I don't recall them actually losing anyone major, so It really, I think, is going to be dependent on the coaching. And then, obviously, I do expect the offense to be better with, I don't even think Trey Lance is going to start year one, but I still do expect that offense to take another step forward.
Oh, I do too. I don't think Trey Lance is going to be ready.
Yeah, exactly. I don't expect him to start year one.
Year, so you're probably going to see a lot of Jimmy Garoppolo for about 2-3 weeks before he somehow does something stupid or gets hurt or something, and then you'll see whoever their backup is this year. I feel like it's probably C.J. Beathard and Nick Mullins again, but those guys have been serviceable for them, so either way.
But yeah, anything else to add on the Lions schedule? I mean, it's kind of pointless to do like a schedule prediction. I think Vegas has us at over under 5.5.
Looking at the schedule, I'd probably take the under. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Oh yeah, I'd be honest with you, 3 wins is what I go at right now.
3-14.
Yep, 3-14. Which sounds so weird.
I'll go one better and say 4-15. 4-13. Sorry, 15. 4-13. I think one better. I know.
With the extra game.
Right. Give me your 3 wins. I'm curious.
Ooh. Okay. Again, this is going to be very giant asterisk. Actually, you don't even know how these teams are going to look.
Right. Plus, we are doing this based on the Packers having Aaron Rodgers under center week 1.
Okay. I'll go home against Cincy.
Okay.
I will go Thanksgiving against the Bears.
Okay.
At home. And then after that, that's tough.
I'll agree.
Let's go at Atlanta. At Atlanta on Christmas, day after Christmas.
I'll agree with you on those two. I think both those games are winnable games for the Lions. I think, call me crazy, I think the Cincinnati game will be a tougher game than Chicago. I think that team's going to play up a little bit this year. But beyond those 2 games, the 2 that I circle as being winnable games. Okay, I'm going to say 3, but I don't like counting the 3rd because I think it's a cheapie. Minnesota at home. Following Thanksgiving, you get a long break there to get ready for it.
Rip off a 2-game win streak.
You get a long break there. Or, like you said, Atlanta on the road day after Christmas. So that one is another one. The other one that I would circle is Week 17 against Green Bay because I fully expect them to be sitting players at that point. So
Week 18, you mean?
18, sorry. Yeah. Again, though, I think it is a cheapie, so I don't like to count it.
All right, I have a question for you. What is more likely to happen? The Lions hit their Vegas over, or they become the first 0-18 football team, or 0-17 football team?
What is more likely?
If you got to put your money on one of them, the over or 0-17?
I'm going to say it's the over.
You're going to say it's the over?
Yeah, and the reason I say that is because this team does have some semblance of talent on the offense side of the ball, one. Mm-hmm. Two, I think this team will look to play up for Dan Caldwell. I think we'll be pleasantly surprised at times. Dan
Caldwell?
Dan Campbell, Jesus. Caldwell, there's a name we haven't heard in a minute. Dan Campbell. I think they'll look to play up for him and surprise us a little bit. I do think he's a motivator. I also think it's going winless in the NFL is honestly, I think it's really hard to do. It's there's so many injuries. The ball bounces weird. Anything can happen. There's so many variables. The league is designed for that not to happen, and they do a really good job at designing it that way. So what teams don't go winless, and I don't see the Lions going winless. Yes, they've got a really tough schedule, but some of these teams that aren't vulnerable on paper right now may end up being pretty damn vulnerable because maybe a quarterback goes down, or the leader on your defense goes down, or the quarterback just has an off day, or it's a really windy and rainy and wet game and it's just a grinded out type of game, and Dan Campbell gets his guys fired up for that. Anything can happen.
I agree. That's why I kind of hate doing schedule predictions in general.
Right.
But I also thought it'd be a fun question to ask. I'm trying to see if there's an updated line though for the Lions. It's at 5 flat now. Okay.
5 flat.
Yeah.
At
least it's according to FanDuel.
I'd say that they are more likely to hit the over on that.
Either way, yeah, the over is 6. Either way. So.
Like I said, I think that you're looking at a 4-13 team. So I'm one game off that. They could probably squeak out another win somewhere.
2 more wins.
Well, one
would be a
one
push.
pushes it, yeah. So 2 more wins.
Yeah, that was the one question I had on that schedule.
Shall we quickly move over to the Pistons?
Let's run it.
All right. So Pistons rounded out their schedule, or rounded out their season, I should say, in wonderful fashion. If you were in on the Lions or the Pistons, jeez,
I'll tell you, once the Celtics, once the Knicks beat the Celtics in the afternoon game, and then the injury report came out for the Heat, and they were sitting like Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo. I was like, oh no, this is gonna get bad. This is gonna get.
See, part of me, yes, I was a little bit worried, but part of me was like, okay, they've come this far with the tank. They're not going to blow it tonight. They've been with the Pistons.
Once the first quarter happened, all my concerns were eased.
At some point in the last month, just hit a switch where they're like, all right, we've seen enough. Starters, bench, outside of the rookies. Starters, you're not playing anymore unless the league gets on us. Mm-hmm. The rookies can still play, but your rookies, you're not going to win us games by yourselves. Mm-hmm. So it was almost like Dwayne Casey and Troy Weaver flipped the switch, and it went from, okay, this is just a really bad basketball team that's still trying and will win some ugly games, but are mostly going to lose, to they're actively trying to lose now. And that last month of the year obviously saved them and put them in position to get a top pick, and it did. So I really felt like they weren't going to screw it up this late in the year with 1 game to go. I really felt like I was confident. I
had my seatbelt buckled, ready for a ride. Thankfully, the ride ended in a quarter. But no, this is like we talked about in the last podcast. This was everything I could have wished for out of a Pistons season. I mean, obviously, the only better outcome was if we actually went all the way down to the first pick. But obviously, Houston was insanely aggressive with their tank. But you think about it, we achieved the second best, the best odds at Cade Cunningham, but the second best lottery odds overall, all while never ripping off more than a 4-game losing streak until the very end of the season, where we finally lost 5 in a row to close it out. That's kind of impressive that we never actually had a streak where we lost 7, 8, 9 games in a row and finished as low as we did.
I mean, it's because this team was
consistent, focused losing. It's what
right, and it's
while staying competitive.
And it's because this team was a competitive basketball team for much of the year. They had some pieces that played well. The rookies played well above what we expected them to.
Yep.
And they fought. They fought in games, and they were annoying to an extent. And they were able to win some games that they probably shouldn't have. And that's where they were able to kind of stop the bleeding a little bit. And you almost didn't want them to because of our goals for this year, but it was an ugly season to watch, but it wasn't abysmal. At times they were even fun to watch. When the rookies were all playing together and looking real good, they were fun to watch.
Well, I agree. And speaking of the rookies, do you think Sadiq Bey, do you think he's earned all rookie team honors?
Maybe second team. I don't quite think he's up there with the all rookie honors on the top team.
So who you put up? So you put? I mean, I agree. We put LaMelo above him, right?
LaMelo, Anthony Edwards.
I'll agree. Anthony Edwards. I'll agree. Halliburton.
Well, there's the guards right there. They're still doing it positionally speaking, aren't they?
I don't think so.
Jayshawn Tate probably deserves it over him. He's had a real strong year as well.
Yeah, I think him and Jayshawn Tate are on equal footing, and I've been favoring Sadiq Bey over Jayshawn Tate, but
Sadiq Bey's kind of fallen off quite a bit. Well, not necessarily fallen off, but he's shown a lack of consistency in a lot of ways. And some nights, like when he's good, he's really good, but when he's bad, he's really, really bad. Jayshawn Tate also brings a lot more besides scoring the ball to his team as well. Sadiq brings the defense. He does. But
the reason I bring this up, in my mind,
is just a little bit ahead of Sadiq Bey.
The reason I bring this up, though, is because Zach Lowe released his projections or who he would pick, basically, and he had both Sadiq and Isaiah Stewart in the second team, the all-rookie second team.
I'll agree with that, both of them.
But it's who he had in the all-rookie team above Sadiq that I disagreed with. I agree with LaMelo, Tyrese Halliburton, Anthony Edwards. I don't agree with putting Desmond Bane over Sadiq Bey.
I don't either. And
you could make a case for Emmanuel Quickley, but I would still put Sadiq over
I'd
Quickley.
put Emmanuel Quickley on the second team. The one player I would put Jayshawn Tate on the first team over Sadiq Bey. And
he's got Jayshawn on the second team.
I'd put Jayshawn Tate above him. And you could make an argument for guys like Patrick Williams and Kenyon Martin Jr. You can make an argument for those two. Kenyon Martin just didn't play a whole bunch this year. He only played 44 games compared to Sadiq's 69, so there wasn't as much to look at there. But when Kenyon Martin did play in extended minutes, my God, was he impressive, extremely impressive. So those are really the three guys that I would say you could argue being ahead of Sadiq Bey. Jayshawn Tate, in my mind, really is. I don't really even think it's that close between Tate and Sadiq Bey. I kind of put him in a tier above right now.
I think they have nearly identical cases, personally. But
I disagree. But regardless, I think
that's why I can't really fight on Jayshawn Tate, because I really do think it's two sides of the same coin.
You got to see Jayshawn Tate a little bit more than you did Sadiq Bey early in the year.
Early in the year,
yeah. And Jayshawn Tate was just really consistent all throughout, and that's one of the things that I liked about him was how consistent he seemed to be. Whereas Sadiq Bey, from week to week, he seemed to just disappear one week and reappear the next.
Speaking of not getting to see Sadiq Bey too much early on, Dwayne Casey was actually asked about that, and this quote is courtesy of James Edwards. He said, "I gotta find it," but basically said we should find out who his coach is. That's on his coach. You need to talk to him, someone along those lines.
To give you an idea of what this is not this year's. This is.
What are you looking for?
The way the NBA has the rookie ladder right now.
Oh yeah, that doesn't come out till tomorrow. The updated one, I should say, won't come out till tomorrow.
Okay, so they've got LaMelo Ball. This is through May 10th.
Yeah, but Sadiq had been in the top 5 for a while. I don't know where he is now, but he'd been in that top 5.
They've got LaMelo Ball number 1, Anthony Edwards number 2, which I agree with. Jayshawn Tate number 3, Tyrese Halliburton number 4, and then Sadiq Bey is number 5 there. So there is legitimate thoughts on him getting up into the number 1 all rookie team, first team, as opposed to the second team.
You said who was right above Sadiq?
Tyrese Halliburton. Sadiq's number 5.
Gotcha.
Okay. Then they've got Isaiah Stewart at number 6, Emmanuel Quickley 7, Desmond Bane 8, Cole Anthony 9, Isaac Okoro at 10.
I would have no issues with the all rookie team being the way the NBA rookie ladder is, the way you just described.
So you would rather them keep off a guy like Kenyon Martin Jr.?
I mean, you didn't see enough of Kenyon Martin Jr. That was
you
spurts.
saw 44 games out of him.
That was in spurts.
And if you saw 44 games out of him when you only saw 46 out of Cole Anthony.
I
thought Kenyon Martin actually improved, looked more impressive than Cole Anthony.
Like second team, I would put guys like Quickly, Bane. I'd put Isaiah Stewart. You could argue Peyton Pritchard there.
He is all the way down at 19 on this list here.
Interesting.
Yep. They've got above him. They've got Killian Hayes, which I don't agree. James Wiseman, which he was impressive, but he didn't play much.
I wouldn't put Wiseman.
No, I wouldn't either. But these guys are all outside the top 13, mind you. And
where's Kenyon Martin on that ladder? Kenyon Martin Jr.
6.
Interesting.
Yeah. Honestly, in terms of who impressed me the most and did their job the most, so to speak, it probably would deserve to go first team over a guy like Saddiq Bey. I could kind of make an argument for Isaiah Stewart being that number 5 guy, taking over as the first team. Because, again, we really got to see maybe half a season of the guy in terms of extended minutes. And he
already added an outside game.
Right. And he impressed the hell out of everybody in that kind of half season of extended minutes because he, as you mentioned, developed an outside game. He has extremely high energy offensively and defensively. He put up some nights 10 and 10, 15 and 10. I think he even had a 20 rebound night a time or two. He did things on the floor that just kind of blew you away that you just don't see it as often in today's game. And that's where I'd say, because guys like Saddiq Bey, the player he could turn into is a dime a dozen. Let's be real. That 3-and-D guy is a dime a dozen in this league. But my expectations for him are a step above that into where he gets away from that dime a dozen 3-and-D guy type, that fence line there, and turns into a playmaker offensively and a guy that you can run your offense through. Saddiq Bey, I definitely think at the very least deserves to be second team All-NBA, All-Rookie. At the very least, you can definitely make an argument for him being first team, though. I would, like I mentioned, I'd put Jayshawn Tate ahead of him, but beyond that, it gets a little tough for me to find a fifth guy to put ahead of him.
If you're interested, I can give you. So the Ringer did their own projections as well. They have first team All Rookie as LaMelo, Anthony Edwards, Tyrese Halliburton, Emmanuel Quickley, Jayshawn Tate. Second team, Saddiq Bey, Desmond Bane, Xavier Tillman. Two Grizzlies back to back.
That's another name I've seen.
Isaiah Stewart and Facundo Campazzo, who actually I think Zach Lowe also had.
Yep, he honestly really impressed in the opportunity he got once Jamal Murray went down. Did he mention Saddiq Bey in there?
Yeah, Saddiq Bey's on the second.
Did he mention Isaiah Stewart there?
Yeah, both are both
right.
Saddiq and Isaiah Stewart are on the second team as well as Desmond Bane and Tillman. So two Grizzlies, two Pistons.
I can't disagree with that at all. I really can't. I think that group of 10 right there should be in that argument without a doubt. You can definitely make an argument for Emmanuel Quickley over Saddiq Bey. You can. You can obviously make an argument for Jayshawn Tate over Saddiq Bey and Isaiah Stewart. So, I mean, let's just put it this way. If he doesn't make an all-rookie team, I think that's a goddamn travesty. Because both he and Isaiah Stewart deserve to be up there.
I'll agree. Now, another player on the Pistons that's an awards candidate this offseason is, wow, I almost blanked on his name, Jeremy Grant. But so Jeremy Grant in the first couple months of the season, I mean, it started to feel like he was almost a shoo-in for the most improved player. And then Julius Randle started coming on strong and really made a case to the point where I'd even argue Julius Randle is probably your favorite right now for most improved player. But my question to you is, Nick, does Jeremy Grant still have a case? He's probably a firm number 2, but does he still have a case to be the most improved player this season?
I wouldn't put him top 2. I'd put him firmly at number 3, which you can argue being top 3, that gives you a case. I think one player in particular runs away with it, though, in Julius Randle. I don't think there's a question there.
Hey, who's in between them, though?
Christian Wood. He's got the number. He's the guy that's looked at as the next guy, averaging 21, 9.6, and just under a block and a quarter a game for Houston, and being the leader of that basketball team as well. He is the guy that's stepped up and been the number 2 guy, and that looks to be the rankings that CBS has as well. Beyond him, you could look at Michael Porter Jr., as a big-time candidate for most improved player because he really didn't get a ton of opportunity last year versus this year. Dude's straight up a stud. Like, I would love to have that man on my team. But those would be my top 4. I would put Jeremy Grant and Michael Porter Jr. kind of on the same tier, and then I would put Wood in kind of an in-between one in that top tier in the second tier. So I guess he's in a tier of his own at number 2, and then I would put Julius Randle up top because I think he just kind of runs away with it. In my mind, there's really no question as to who should win this award. It's Julius Randle without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Yeah. Julius Randle, like, in terms of, like, if you wanted to compare just numbers, the biggest jump from year to year probably would have been someone like Jeremy Grant, but Julius Randle made that jump without having a significant jump in minutes. He averaged 5 more minutes per game than he did the season before.
Right.
And
Jeremy Grant averaged a lot more minutes than he did the year prior.
He's averaging 5 more points per game and obviously improvements in every other statistical category, especially assists. He's doubled his assist totals. But it's just in general the impact that he's had on the game this year versus last year and just the way that team has played around him overall.
You're referring to the Knicks?
Yeah. I think everything kind of has fallen in place for he basically checks all the boxes for
he does. And let's put it this way, who expected the Knicks to be a near the top team in the East candidate?
Tom Thibodeau.
Besides him.
I mean, not Dwayne Casey.
Exactly. Nobody did.
You heard what he told Derrick Rose, right? That came out so when Derrick Rose said he wanted to be traded to a playoff team, I think one of the teams he had requested at the time was the Knicks. He said I just want to. So Derrick Rose said, I just want to go to I just want to go where we may have a chance to make the playoffs. And Dwayne Casey told him, Derek, you may have a chance here just as much as they have in New York. That didn't turn out to be true at all.
That aged very poorly.
Yeah. In all fairness, like at the time,
the Knicks weren't exactly a good basketball team.
Yeah, but then they went 24-11 since then.
Yeah,
so.
they got their shit together in a hurry, and a lot of it was because of Julius Randle. He's what, 6'9", 6'8", something along those lines, and he's a triple-double candidate almost nightly. I mean, he distributes the ball better than anybody I've seen at his size, outside of maybe Jokic. He's a number 1 scorer. He plays really solid defense, and he gets after it on the glass as well. I mean, anybody who averages 24.2, 10.3 boards, 5.9 assists, 1.0 steals, that's a guy who is the centerpiece on your team.
Yeah. And he's a shining example of why you don't write people off so early in their careers. I remember people were calling him a bust when he was at the Lakers.
Exactly. 100% agree. And to give you an idea of Christian Wood's increase last season for the Pistons, he averaged 13.1 points, 6.3 boards, and 1 assist in 21 and a half minutes versus this year, 21 points, 9.6 boards, 1.7 assists, and also shooting 50% from the field and 37% from 3.
Which is comparable to Jeremy Grant's, which
is
in a 7-minute increase. He increased by 10 points per game from 12 to 22. He upped his rebounds, his assists, basically everything. So, yeah, it's very comparable.
Right. Michael Porter Jr. more than doubled his scoring output from last year to this year. Wow. And also almost doubled his rebounding numbers as well. Shooting better. He had a good year. But I think it's a one-man race, in my opinion. Jeremy Grant had a hell of a year. But
so the Magic must hate Christian Wood because on their own website, they have their own ranking of top 10 most improved player award candidates. They have Christian Wood at number 9.
What? Get out of here with that.
They have Michael Porter at number 4, though. They give him the respect due.
Well, CBS put Porter at 4.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They gave him the respect due.
Yeah.
They really slighted Christian Wood there.
Terry Rozier's an interesting candidate because he really was not great last year, and then this year he looked like a stud.
But okay, so I think we're both in agreement then that it's really Julius Randle, and I don't think we can make really a case for Jeremy Grant.
No, I think he had a really good year. He obviously made a big improvement in the increased workload, but I don't think he comes close to what Julius Randle's done this year.
Yeah, and as a Pistons player, as a Pistons fan, when we made that signing last offseason, really the best you could hope for was he turns into a most improved player candidate because you were taking a guy off Denver's bench and making him a starter your expectation for paying him that much money is he better be a most improved player candidate.
Right, and I'm pretty sure that's exactly what we said coming into the year. Is we expect him just because of the amount of volume and what role he's going to play on this team. We expect him to be up near the most improved player candidate list, and frankly, his numbers that I kind of pegged for him really aren't far off, if not right on to what I kind of pegged for him to be grabbing this year.
I didn't quite expect 22 points per game.
I was expecting around 20.
Yeah,
just because I knew the guy was going to take a ton of shots, and he was going to be a guy that probably was going to see volume scorer type minutes or volume scorer type production, and that's what we got. So I expected to see somewhere around 20 points going into the year. The only thing that bothered me about Jeremy Grant this year, and I can't really even say it bothered me because when this happened, it was honestly better for the team, is I saw a lot of nights where he seemingly took off. Like, you saw a lot of 12 points, 3 boards, 1 assist, and terrible shooting out of him this year. A lot of nights like that. So a lot of inconsistency, but for the most part, I mean, the guy was really good this year. He was their primary scorer. He was the guy that you needed him to be to continue building. I wouldn't even say it was a lot of nights. Like, he had, how many games did he have scoring in how many games did he have scoring in single digits, for example? Oh, I'm not even saying single digits. I'm saying scoring around 12 to 15 points on a bad shooting night. Okay. Like that's not what you ask him to do. You ask him to be your primary guy. He is your primary scorer. You want him scoring up near, at the very least, near 20, if not more than 20. Single digit nights, he probably had 2 to 5, somewhere in that range. You know, he obviously had nights like that. Everybody does. Yeah. But either way, my question for you, Andrew, before we move on here is, seeing what Jeremy Grant did this year, seeing what we have on the roster, and looking at what we could potentially get in this year's draft, is Jeremy Grant a guy that you are going to have on your roster as a cornerstone piece moving forward?
That's the plan. To me, at least. He's young enough where he could be part of this core. Like, if you're talking in 2-3 years is when you expect this team to be competing, a 30-year-old Jeremy Grant is fine with me.
2 years is optimistic, but yeah. That's very optimistic.
But 2-3 years, in 3 years, a 30-year-old Jeremy Grant, that's okay with me.
Nearing the end of his contract that he just signed, because I think he'll have 2 years left in the deal, including that year at that point.
I do think that the intention, obviously I don't have any actual insight, but I do think the intention is to keep him here as a cornerstone, and I think it fits considering the types of players we could be looking at in this year's draft, with the guard-heavy top portion of this draft with guys like Cade Cunningham, Jalen Green, Jalen Suggs, and even Evan Mobley doesn't interfere with what Jeremy Grant's doing. So I do think there's a spot for him here. My question to you, but to ping pong it back over to you, is would there be any consideration on your end to move Jeremy Grant? Not saying that this could actually happen, but to land you another pick in the top 5 of this year's draft.
You're telling me right now there's a team offering me that?
I don't think there will be, but I absolutely
do not think there will be. Like I am like 99% positive there won't be a chance of that happening.
I'm of the belief it'll be impossible moving to the top 4 of this draft.
Yes.
If you're not in the top 4, I don't think anyone's going to be able to move into the top 4.
Unless you have multiple first round picks in the next 3 years that you're willing to get rid of to move from like 8 to 5 or 8 to 4. Like you have to have insanely good assets to move up. And I don't think Jeremy Grant is that asset. Yeah. Now, if you were to tell me right now a team came out and said, hey, we'll give you pick number 3 for Jeremy Grant, I'd be running up there with that saying, hell yeah.
Or if it was Jeremy Grant in a future first, pick number 3.
Jeremy Grant in a future first. How future are we talking?
2023 unprotected.
Ooh, that's going to be a high pick.
It may not be. If, let's say you got Cade Cunningham and Jalen Green on the squad now, and then next year you have a decent pick, I guess, and then you may not have, you may be pretty good by the time
the problem is with getting Cade Cunningham and Jalen Green is it makes a couple of your draft picks from the last year almost moot at that point.
It may kill you moot if you have both those guys.
Yes, you could argue it would, without a doubt, lessen the impact that Sadiq Bey would have as well. He would almost be relegated more to a bench scoring type role unless you planted him at the 3 and didn't move him elsewhere at all.
Yeah, I think you'd alternate between Bay and Grant between the 3 and the 4 because they both play both positions.
Grant's gone.
Oh yeah, shit, yeah, I forgot. So yeah, Bay could play both the 3 and the 4. I mean,
he could. He's a little small to play the 4, but in small ball, he could.
I prefer him at the 3 because I like him. Because then again, in today's modern NBA, you can play a 4-out-1 in. It's not a big deal. But
would you argue with that pick maybe going like Cade Cunningham and Evan Mobley, getting some size there?
You could easily make that argument.
And then it doesn't necessarily make Killian Hayes moot. Like, you can still work with that. Now,
you could easily make that argument.
Oh, it's making me think about saying yes. That's hinging so much, and I mean so much, on guys that we really didn't get the greatest look at this year. Let's be honest, we didn't.
Yeah. No, I agree.
You're putting your entire future into the hands of draft picks from the last 2 drafts, from this draft and last draft.
It's just I, along with a lot of Pistons fans, are super high in the top 4 of this year's draft.
Oh, don't be wrong, I am as well. Would you make that trade? Would you do it? 2023 unprotected and Jeremy Grant? I would do it only if we have the first pick too. If we're already in the first pick, and then it's like between 2, 3, and 4. So, like, say you have the second pick and they're offering you pick number 3. That doesn't do it. You don't like the idea of Jalen Green, Jalen Suggs, or
I'm trying to pair someone with Cade Cunningham.
Okay,
I wouldn't want to. Yeah, because I'm not too confident that pick is not going to be a really good pick in 2023. If I'm pairing someone with Cade Cunningham, I'm a little more confident that we're going to be good enough, or I'm not going to sweat it too much by 2023. But if there's a lot more unknown if you're not. If that makes any sense.
A little bit. I mean, yes, it does. I just don't necessarily know if I agree with it, because guys like Jalen Green, I do value as guys that I think
100%
are like star potential. So
100%.
Whereas Cade Cunningham is where he is, I think Jalen Green and Jalen Suggs really aren't that far behind.
Like, I'm of the belief that Evan Mobley, for example, is the top pick in any other draft when you don't have a generational talent like Cade Cunningham.
Right.
Jalen Green's the top pick in any other draft where you don't have a unicorn like Evan Mobley. Like, it just so happens you have all 3 of those guys all in one draft.
Right.
Like, it's crazy.
Which is why, like, I may still even consider it if it is for the, I don't have the number 1. I have number 2 and number 3. What if, in the scenario, you fall all the way to 5 and you're looking to try to get back up into that top 5 or top 4 to get one of those guys? There's your opportunity to make it happen. No? Okay.
Because I'm only getting one of those guys. And I'm mortgaging my future to get one of those guys.
All right. Fair enough. I mean, technically, they would be your future at that point. You're not really mortgaging it. You're just trying to push your future up.
But one other topic I wanted to touch on before we close out is fan favorite here in Detroit, Ben Wallace, finally earned his dues. He made it to the Hall of Fame.
Before we get on this, one more question about this year's team.
Sorry.
And this brings up something that was announced and happened recently, but Dwayne Casey recently got an extension.
Oh, yeah.
With to continue being the head coach of the Detroit Pistons. What are your thoughts on this, and what do you think of the job that give Dwayne Casey a grade for this season?
No, I love it. I was actually on the side of I didn't want to hire Dwayne Casey when the rumors were flying when that happened. I looked at his body work in Toronto, and and then what Nick Nurse was going to be able to do after. It really felt like in our SVG. He felt really conservative in Toronto, and he didn't feel like he was taking the necessary risks, and it really reminded me of what SGV was doing here in Detroit. And he definitely proved me wrong. I mean, I'm willing to give him a mulligan on the first year with just obviously everything's in flux, and then this year the way he's handled all our young talent and the way he's handled this rebuild, I love it when I see players rallying behind a coach. That's a huge positive for me, and it really seems to me that all these players really love to play for Coach Casey, and he's doing a great job with player development in that respect as well. So I have nothing to complain about with him. And like, obviously you look at a record, you're like, you don't want to give someone who just won 20 games in the season an A, but I would be more upset if it's not like if he had won 26 games, we'd be pretty pissed off, wouldn't we? Exactly. And like watching the games, other than why are we playing Corey Joseph right now and stuff like there wasn't anything glaring like game plan wise, I was like, this is stupid. Why are we doing this? So I'm actually fairly comfortable giving Coach Casey, and let's call it an A- for this season.
I'm going to come to the exact same resolution or end game and as resolution here as you are with Dwayne Casey. I really like the Dwayne Casey. I love the Dwayne Casey re-signing coming back to this team for the future.
Which isn't insane that this is the first re-signed head coach since Chuck Daly.
Yeah, it's wild. But I will say this. I don't necessarily agree with your thought process on it. I look at his time with the Raptors as being one of the big reasons why I want him back.
Now looking back, yes.
And the reason I say that is because looking at what the players how the players developed with that team while he was there, guys like Pascal Siakam were not big name guys. They really flourished with Dwayne Casey as the mentor, basically. OG Anunoby became the player that he is today with big help from Dwayne Casey. Yes, Nick Nurse had a hand in that as well. Fred VanVleet, another example of that. I don't necessarily compare Dwayne Casey to SVG. I compare him to more of a Rick Carlisle, who at times was conservative, but was able to get talent together and get more out of the talent than you really expected to. And that's what I saw from Dwayne Casey this year. And he may or may not be the guy that can take us over the hump, but he can at least get, at the very least, I believe he can get us to the hump and maybe get us over it. And in terms of how, if there was one thing I would give him a negative on this year, and I'm not going to really put weight on the record because, again, look at the last month of this. Look at the way that they played the last month. They sat anybody who was any good on this roster that wasn't a rookie.
That's what I was saying. Like 20, I can't say like, you only 20 wins.
I'm not going to put any weight on the record of this year. In fact, I will actually say that the one detractor that I have, the one black mark I have on his report card this year in my book is the way he ran some of his lineups and the way he used certain guys, especially early in the year to around the midway point, kind of really bothered me. Like you mentioned, why are we playing Corey Joseph right now? Like he'd utilize guys in minutes that just didn't make sense for the end goal for this team.
So in retrospect, would you say it's a black mark for him to have played Killian Hayes as a starter in the first few games of the season?
You can argue that, but you can't predict the hip injury. And while
it's not about the hip injury, it's just how fish out of water he looked.
Right, but see, even if he did look fish out of water, like I think that he would have recognized that and sat him down. Like had he had the amount of time to see this, and
I agree.
He would have probably sat him down, started somebody else, and allowed him to learn, which we did see a little bit of, if I remember right. But I definitely think that the only problem I have with the way Dwayne Casey handled things was some of the lineup maneuvering and guys playing certain minutes when, in all reality, this isn't a game we can afford to win, frankly. But I do think he gave a lot of run to a lot of the young guys, an opportunity to a lot of the young guys when they needed it and deserved it. I would have liked to see Isaiah Stewart a little bit sooner, Sadiq Bey a little bit sooner. But either way, I think he did a really good job this year in managing this team and bringing the most out of the talent that he had. I mean, Frank Jackson was a guy that you could almost trust to put up 15 to 20 points in a game.
Yeah.
Like that who the hell is Frank Jackson? Nobody knew that name before this year. I promise you that. And the fact that, what he got out of the guys that he was dealt was impressive. So I give him an A-. The one black mark on his report card being the way he handled some of the lineups during the season, especially early on.
Do you think Dwayne Casey is the coach to, once we're through this rebuild, do you think Dwayne Casey is the type of guy that we could actually get to the finals with, for example?
See, I don't know.
We have the team in place.
See, I don't know. And that's where I bring up the Rick Carlisle comparison. Is he the guy that can get us over the hump? And he wasn't the guy in Toronto. Nick Nurse was. And I bring up the Rick Carlisle comparison.
In his defense, Nick Nurse also finally had Kawhi on his team, and he didn't have to face LeBron.
He did. Right. Where Dwayne Casey, Rick Carlisle turned it over to Larry Brown, who brought in Rasheed, who then took it over the hump. So, granted, I'm not comparing Rasheed to Kawhi Leonard, but Rasheed was a huge part of that team. Rasheed was a huge part of that team. Without him, they don't win that title. So they both had luxuries of bringing guys in to put them over the hump, so to speak. But
Yeah.
I don't know. There is something to be said about a message getting stale after a while. We've seen it here before, but I think Dwayne Casey is a good enough coach that can at least lead us to that level. I'm not entirely positive he's a guy that can get us over the hump, but I don't know. I have no idea. I don't even know if the talent we have is going to be good enough to get us to it. But
Yeah, not saying you can't. He very well could.
I really like what he's done so far, and he's the coach I want for this rebuild. 100%.
Now, let's talk about the Hall of Fame. Ben Wallace made the Hall of Fame. I think we're both in agreement here. Much deserved.
We're biased, but yes.
First undrafted player to make the Hall. 2 questions on this. First, is he the only player from the Going to Work crew that makes the Hall of Fame?
I think you can make a case for one, maybe 2 other players on that roster that could deservedly be in the Hall. In terms of players, Larry Brown absolutely is in the Hall. The other ones being Chauncey and Rip, but Rip I really don't think deserves it just because the body of work wasn't long enough. He didn't really do anything that crazy. I mean, I think he went to 1 All-Star game in his career.
I think you might be right. I'll double check you on that, but I think you might be right.
Which would
have been the year that they all went.
Right. So in terms of individual accolades, Rip just doesn't have it. I don't think he made any All-NBA teams.
Oh, 3 All-Star games. He went from 06 through 08.
Okay. So we made multiple All-Star games. But either way, 3 All-Star games just isn't really enough in my book to make it to the Hall. You got to add some All-NBA somethings on there, and he doesn't have those. He did win I believe he won an NCAA title, though, didn't he?
He did. Yep.
So that'll help his resume because it is the Basketball Hall of Fame, not just the NBA Hall of Fame. But in terms of just looking at his NBA resume, I don't quite think he's there just yet. Chauncey is a much better case in my mind.
Especially if once he becomes, and I say once because it will happen, once he becomes a head coach, if he finds success as a head coach, if that happens, he's a shoo-in.
Does Chauncey become a head coach or a GM first?
That's a great question.
See, that's what
I was going to say head coach.
I mean, that's the natural route of things, but he's been rumored more so of being a GM first. Because, he was looked at to be the Pistons GM before he hired Troy Weaver. But Chauncey's made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 All-Star games. So there's already a big boost there in terms of the resume. He has the NBA Finals MVP to go on his resume. He has also made some All-NBA teams. This is 5-time NBA All-Star. I'm pretty sure it's 7. He's made an All-NBA second team in 2006. 2-time All-NBA third team in 07-09. 2-time All-NBA defensive second team in 05-06. It's almost getting kind of tough to not put Chauncey.
Argue against it? Yeah.
He's got a lot of the resume. Sure, he doesn't have the crazy numbers. Let's be honest. His numbers were never really that amazing. In fact, he never averaged a season over 20 points. And it's not like he's got the insane defense to go with it. He never averaged a season over 10 assists. So over even 9 assists he never even had. So it's tough to argue
it's just the nature of that team. That team wasn't flashy in terms of numbers. It was just, they just gelled.
You did have a clear number one guy that was the true leader, that was the motivator, that was the anchor for that team, and it was Ben. No question. He was the beginning and the anchor for that team. Chauncey was kind of I can't really say the heart, but he was the
general.
He was the general for that team, for sure. He was the glue, the general. Because once Chauncey went away, everything kind of fell apart after that. It's tough to argue against Chauncey, but again, we're biased. But in my opinion, Ben Wallace absolutely is the clear deserving candidate to go to the Hall from that team. And really the only clear deserving candidate to go to the Hall.
I'd say you can make the argument for Chauncey. I'd probably cut it after that, to be honest with you.
I would too.
Because I even disagreed with Rip Hamilton getting his jersey retired. So,
I do think we retired jerseys a little bit too easy in this town.
Do you think that we end up retiring Rashid or Tayshaun?
No.
I agree.
And I don't think we should.
I think if we were to do that, that would have been on the heels of Rip.
Right. If they were to do that, it would have already happened by now. You would have done them all together. And Rashid wasn't really here long enough, I don't think. He was here for 4 or 5 years?
Something like that.
Tayshaun was here a little bit longer, but again, Tayshaun really never did anything that insane.
Tayshaun was the unsung hero of that starting five.
He was.
Basically.
And he just
he did all the dirty work.
He did. And he kind of just, I mean, don't get me wrong. Dude was an insanely good defender when you needed him to be. He was the guy that would lock down Kobe.
Can you not be with that wingspan?
Right. True. But I'll tell you right now, watching those Reggie Miller, Tayshaun Prince battles was awesome. Mm-hmm. Watching Tayshaun cover Reggie was great.
Oh, yeah. And my other favorite was watching Reggie trying to cover Rip.
Yep.
Anyone trying to cover Rip, actually, to be honest with you. But like,
dude never stopped moving. He was so entertaining to watch because he never stopped moving. I loved it. I loved watching him play.
So I want to close it out with, do you have a favorite Ben Wallace memory?
I have a lot.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I can picture block after block after block, him grabbing Ron Artest by the throat and shoving him halfway across the floor to start the brawl. Which most people would be like, why would you like that one? It just showed the attitude and, frankly, the strength that he possessed. Him going mano a mano against Shaq several times was always entertaining. When
he blocked Shaq like back to back in the finals, that was.
I mean, there's tons of memories that I've got of Ben Wallace that it's tough to let him go. You know, him being the guy to raise the Larry O'Brien trophy.
Yes.
That's a big one. That picture just lives rent-free in my head, and I ain't kicking it out.
So some of my favorite just general memories of Ben Wallace was being able to look at his hairdo and tell if we were playing home or away. Before we even see the jersey, it's just like we got the cornrows on, or we have the fro. What's going on here?
He had the cornrows occasionally at home. Occasionally.
I don't remember doing it. I always remember if it was a fro, he was home. If it was cornrows, it was away. That's how I always remembered it. Until like the return to when he came back in his later years.
I got a picture of him. Looks to be early years of him in the cornrows in the white jersey.
But the other one was I feel like it was always him to do this, but when you during that 04 playoff run, watching him with the spray paint bottle X out those numbers with every win as we cut close to that one. Mm-hmm. Was always beautiful. And then just hearing the Big Ben Tower.
Yep.
Just every time a block happened, or it's doom is what it felt like every time.
Speaking of Ben with the cornrows in a home uniform, so my NBA 2K16, the My Team cards, so his 04 historic card has a picture of him in the white jersey with the cornrows. How bad of a missed opportunity is that?
That's a terrible missed opportunity. How do you not have as your card, how do you not have him in the fro?
I don't know. Like it's a historic player's card from the game. 87 overall rating, which I think is an abomination. He's a 90 at least. In the cornrows. And the picture I believe is from 04 because I think they purposely took pictures from those years. Mm-hmm. But that's a missed opportunity. Should have absolutely been the fro.
I just realized that iconic photo of Ben absolutely dominating Shaq with a block when Shaq was in the Heat. That was at the Palace, and he has a cornrows. Mm-hmm. He did not have the fro out.
I figured it wasn't often, but it still happened. But so my whole thing with the Ben Wallace going to the NBA Hall of Fame, or Basketball Hall of Fame, I should say, is it really shows that defense isn't forgotten in this league, and I know it seems like it based on, games. Mm-hmm. But it shows that defense is still important and it's still valued. And sure, it's mainly the old heads that are probably voting him in, and the old heads obviously value defense, but I'm hoping it continues to keep the door open for elite tier defensive players in this league. Granted, I don't know that you'll ever see another player whose game solely relies on defense, like Ben Wallace's did.
Yeah.
I don't know what you'll see a player like that have the level of value and awareness and the star power that Ben Wallace possessed. I don't think you'll ever see a player like that in today's game, just because the game's different now. Mm-hmm. You can't play defense the way he played it. That's for damn sure. So,
dude, I remember I was so hurt when he left for the Bulls.
Oh, yeah.
It was just pure pain. Because he was, if I remember correctly, he was coming off a Defense Player of the Year win again. Like it's not like he was.
No, he hadn't lost it yet.
Yeah, he was over 30, but he was still making impact on the game, and that team was still fresh. Like that was 1 year after our finals loss, right?
I believe so. I think that finals loss crushed them all, though. I think it really crushed that team.
I mean, it crushed me. That's the most painful loss in my like Detroit fandom in general was that Robert Horry game.
It's that one, or I have three. That one, the Robert Horry game, Game 7 against the Penguins for the Wings in 2009.
Okay,
that one hurts immensely. And I want to say it's 2012 Tigers, the David Ortiz home run at Fenway Park when Torrey Hunter flipped over into the bullpen in the ALCS. That one still hurts.
I don't know why I legitimately thought you were going to say Lions-Cowboys wild card game.
I mean, sure, that one hurts, but at the same time, I didn't have the expectations for them.
Yeah, it just felt like we were robbed.
Right. Like that one, I didn't have the like all those other games. Don't get me like all those other games. The other team won it fair and square. Like they earned it. They deserved that win. You know, they versus the Cowboys. I still don't think they earned that win. Plus, I also like in terms of the other teams. Obviously, I had championship aspirations for the Wings and the Pistons.
We did not for the Lions.
Right.
We just wanted that first playoff win. That's what we wanted.
I didn't expect to win that
in our lifetime.
So one last question before we close it out, and this has kind of been the hot button question circling around Detroit since the announcement of Ben Wallace going to the Hall of Fame is, who would you rather have between the two defensive stalwarts in Pistons history, Ben Wallace or Dennis Rodman, to have on your franchise and be your leader?
Bitch.
Or be your lead defensive guy?
I hate you for this question because basically Dennis Rodman is just a longer Ben Wallace. It's really what it is.
Not wrong.
They're almost identical in every sense of the word. But you know what? I'm going to take Ben because I'm afraid of the ticking time bomb that is Dennis Rodman.
I mean, he lasted long enough to win 5 NBA titles with the Bulls. Or sorry, three with the Bulls.
And also, in all fairness, if he may not have gone off the deep end had that team stayed together in Detroit and had he still had Chuck Daly.
I think he would have kept the shit together in Detroit for sure. At least a little bit. He wouldn't have gone crazy.
It was losing Chuck Daly that really.
So the argument for Dennis Rodman is he's a 7-time NBA rebounding champion compared to Ben's 2. He's a 7-time All-NBA defensive first team compared to Ben's 2. Sorry, 5 for Ben.
I'd say only 2? What?
No, he's got 5.
He has more Defensive Player of the Year awards than he has defensive first teams? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no, it doesn't make sense. He doesn't have as many All-Stars, and I believe Ben has more All-NBA teams. He's got 3-time All-NBA second team and 2-time All-NBA third team.
Rodman also has more DPOYs, right?
Yes, by 2. DPOY was won twice by Rodman, 4 times by Ben. 2-time All-NBA third team for Rodman versus Ben's 4. Sorry, 2-time All-NBA third team and 3 all-time NBA second team. No All-NBA second teams for Rodman. They both made 1 All-NBA defensive team. Ben was the NBA blocks leader in 2002. Rodman never won that. So, I mean, the resume's there. Obviously, Rodman has more titles, but he got the luxury of playing with Michael Jordan for 3 of those titles. So,
what side of the debate are you on?
I'm on Ben Wallace's side. I'm not going to lie to you. I think that the energy he brought, the leadership he brought, you're talking about a 4-time NBA Defensive Player of the Year winner.
That's the other aspect. Is Dennis Rodman was never really a leader on any team that he was on.
He was always a little bit crazy. I think the all-around winning attitude that Ben Wallace brought to his organization was far more valued than what Rodman brought. I lean Ben.
You know what's also crazy to think about? If you put Ben Wallace and Dennis Rodman in the same team back in Dennis Rodman's era, that's a nightmare. If you did it now, that is an absolute trash heap.
That is the owners of that team going bankrupt from fines. If you put those two on a team together back in the mid 80s, I
Even
think it
early
would
90s.
change I think it would have changed the course of basketball entirely into a full contact sport.
Like, imagine if Ben Wallace just was somehow on the Bad Boys, on top of everyone else that was there. Just good
you replace
Lord.
him you replace Bill Laimbeer with him.
Oh no! You
Don't get me
add him
wrong,
to
Bill
it.
Laimbeer was rough and dirty as well.
You just add him to it. Just add to the physical.
You straight up have a street fighting team on that roster at that point.
You have Rick Mahorn and Bill Laimbeer starting, Dennis Rodman, Ben Wallace go off the bench. Like, Jesus Christ.
You literally have a fight squad at that point because you know you knew Isaiah Thomas could throw hands himself as well. Oh man, it would be a fun team to watch.
It'd be a fun team to play with if they had like an NBA brawl game.
Oh yeah, could you imagine Dennis Rodman in a situation like the Malice at the Palace?
Oh Lord, no! Someone would have died. Somebody would have died.
I sure to think he would have killed somebody.
Then again, Artest is probably the craziest player he had since. Metal World Peace. Probably the craziest player we've had.
Yeah,
since
he was
Rodman.
Ron Artest at that point.
Yeah,
Didn't he change his name again?
I don't think so.
I thought he did.
But I props to Metal World Peace because he did
change his name again. His name is now Meta Sandiford Artest.
Okay. Props to Artest because he did give a shot to Ben before the Hall of Fame induction. Well, before him being named to the Hall of Fame, and said that Ben Wallace is like he said some really nice things about Ben Wallace, based that amount too. He deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I can't remember the exact words, but
Nice. Well, that's good that longtime rivals. It is in. Once the game's over with, we can be friends.
I wonder if Ben Wallace shares the friendly sentimentality back.
Man, probably not. He might. I don't know. Ben seems like a guy who's willing to forgive and forget. I don't know.
Anyway, that's all I have for tonight.
Alrighty. Well, that is going to close it out for this week, guys. We will catch you next week. Let us know your thoughts on the Pistons season this year and what you think about the Lions upcoming season and whether or not you think that team can put together some wins, if any. But anyway, Thank you for joining me. Thank you to Detroit Sports Podcast. We will catch you guys next week. Follow us on Twitter @RealFanReport. What were you going to say? I
was saying, we promise we will get the draft talk. We just don't want to inundate you with 2 straight months of it, so we're trying to pace it out.
Yeah. There's going to be not a lot to talk about pretty soon.
Yep.
But we'll still keep it rolling, keep the train moving. So follow us on Twitter @RealFanReport. This has been the Fan Reporters by fans.
For fans.
We will catch you guys next week. Thank you guys again. Have a good one. Peace out.
Peace.